Whether it's because of fear, arrogance, or just bad writing, horror movie characters are known to make terrible decisions which often lead to themselves or others being brutally killed. Maybe it's just one bad decision, or maybe it's an entire movie's worth of mistakes that lead to their demise. I'm Jordan Cant, and today we're going to find out who could have survived Saw 2. Now, before I start, let's set some ground rules. Rule 1. I will not consider a character's survival based on pure luck or information that they had no way of knowing at the point of their demise. Rule 2. If a character's death was based on the decisions of another character, I will still only be considering their survival based on the decisions they themselves could have made to survive. Rule 3. I will only take into account external factors that the character had a level of control over, such as items it would be reasonable to assume they had access to throughout the movie. With 2 dead, Amanda ain't playing around as she grabs a spade and storms out the door. More chat between Kramer and Eric leads to a flashback where, after finding out he had cancer, Kramer yeets himself and his car off a cliff, but survives. Amazed at his own survival, John decides he will spend the rest of his life testing the limits of human nature or something, and that's what started his passion for the games. Back in the house, and Laura ain't looking too good. She passes out briefly before sharing a sweet moment with Daniel, who assures her that this isn't how she dies. We learn that Amanda used to be a drug abuser, which caused her to have to play her first game, and then self-harmed after her first game, which is why she's being made to play her second. Jonas appears in frame with a very strange acting choice before telling the others that they have found another room. Another room, which means another game. And with the door being forcefully opened by Xavier, a cord is pulled and the game begins. Another timer starts, counting down from 4 minutes, and by the time a tape is found and listened to, about 2 minutes are left. The game is for Xavier, and he has to find a key in a pit full of needles. This will unlock the safe with an antidote inside. Xavier decides nah, he ain't gonna do that, and throws Amanda in instead. Wait, why Amanda? Like, I understand that he's an asshole and all, but surely he should have just thrown in Addison since they had clearly hated each other and were constantly bickering. Anyway, in Amanda goes as she throws about the needles like a savage while the rest just watch on, but she doesn't find the key with quite enough time to unlock the door. No one dies in this trap, but an antidote is lost forever, and at this point, with 6 people still alive and 3 antidotes lost, we know at least one more person is doomed, and so, although I won't put a name to this one, someone is definitely going to die as an outcome of losing this game. So, can they get the antidote? Well, very obviously the answer is yes. The key was found with only a few seconds to spare, and so even if they played it very slightly quicker, they could have got the door open and the antidote. But what was the best way they could play this game to save enough time to get the door open? Well, the method starts before Xavier even opens the door. He can see that there is something making it difficult for the door to be opened, and from what they have learnt this far, doors can be trapped. For the amount of leeway in the door, they can see that there is a tripwire before they open the door enough to activate it, at which point they should have worked out that it is likely either a trap or a timer on the other end of that wire. To be honest, from what they've experienced so far, Xavier was lucky it wasn't a gun on the other side of that door, and I'm not sure why he didn't more cautiously think of that option instead of charging through the door. Suddenly doors are safe now? I don't know. However, because they know that something's going to activate when the door opens, they should know to be aware and alert when it opens, so that when they do open the door and see a timer ticking, they know that they have a limited amount of time and need to act quickly. They know they are looking for antidotes, and so it is safe to assume that there's probably one somewhere in the room, and they should all have instantly started scanning the room for immediate danger and then have looked for clues. When looking for clues, they'll find the tape, the pit full of needles, and then hear the game, leaving them with about 2.5 minutes left. They know that they have to find the key as quickly as possible. Now, the needles would certainly sting, but they would definitely not kill you quicker than the poison would, and they are all wearing shoes. Now, the pit isn't huge, but as Daniel said,
"Someone gotta help her."
And that is what they should have done. It is big enough for at least a couple of them to climb in, and if they were worked together, they could probably work through the pit very quickly. Seeing as Amanda found the key in less than 2 minutes, between 3 or 4 of them, they could have likely found the key in less than a minute. And then they would have had more than enough time to get the door open and get the antidote. And so, plain and simple, there was space for them to work together here, and knowing that there was an antidote on the other side of the door, they really should have been fighting together to try and get that antidote. Of course, if someone gets that antidote and knows they're safe, then they could not care about the rest of the group and potentially just no longer help them through the rest of the experience, but at this point, working together is your best option. And so, had they done that, the antidote could have survived, been saved, have been acquired. They could have got the antidote. The group ain't looking so good anymore as they realize what Jigsaw knows about them, and so they must have a connection. They suggest that prison is the connection, but Daniel says he's never been. Eric is panicking with only 30... Eric is panicking with only 30 minutes left before the poison kills his son, and so he briefly goes back into his mind palace and again moves all weird before threatening to destroy all of Kramer's work, but he doesn't seem that bothered. We and Carrie find out that Eric planted evidence that wrongfully convicted all of the people we have grown to know and love in the house, as Kramer has all of their records. In the house, Xavier discovers what the number on the back of the mind clue meant, and it was that they each have numbers written on their necks, and that together the numbers would make the combination to a safe. Knowing there's only one antidote in the safe, and wanting it for himself, Xavier threatens Jonah. After initially winning the fight, Jonah starts suffering too much from the poison, giving Xavier the chance to get back up, and bring down a spiky bat on Jonah's head, killing him. Similar to the tap fight in the first film, I don't really want to go into all the ways that the fight could have gone differently for someone else to have won or a different outcome to have happened, but I will say that considering the fact that Jonah seemed to be suffering a lot more from the poison than Xavier was, it didn't look like Jonah had very long left in him, and it looked like if it was a pure strength fight, unless Jonah had killed Xavier right there when he had the chance, he was never going to win the long fight because Xavier survives the poison for quite a bit longer. And so, Jonah could not have survived. Laura is pretty much also dead at this point as she collapses yet again, but she does notice an X, and girl loves a treasure hunt, so of course she remembers that X marks the spot. But what treasure do they find? Well, it's a picture of Daniel and his dad, and the others realize that they were all put away by Daniel's dad. Laura gets a bit too excited by this revelation and starts shaking with joy. Oh, wait, no, she's dying. Nope, yep, she's dead. And again, I can't really go into much detail about how to save her. If they had managed to get any of the previous 3 antidotes, then she could definitely have survived that way, but I think the only thing she personally could have done to help save herself was help in the needle pit room to get that antidote, as that was the only game up to that point that she really had a potential to have an impact on. And so Laura could not have survived. Really hope you can't hear it. From the chandelier. Okay. Okay. Xavier continues collecting the numbers from the necks of the dead and finds the photo of Daniel and his dad, who quickly becomes his next target. Eric attacks Kramer as the other officers just straight up block Carrie from intervening. Like, they legit just don't let her pass like she is some kind of criminal, even though they have just learned that Matthew planted evidence on people so he could wrongfully convict them. Eric absolutely wails on Kramer, who proceeds to taunt him and get his finger broken. Addison manages to just stumble into a room that they hadn't searched before. I guess it was locked before or something, otherwise surely they would have already found it. And inside is another game with another tape. The tape says, "Hey, wait, Addison, I needed to hear that to tell you all the stupid mistakes you make when trying to get that okay, so you've already screwed that one up. Wait, why are you putting your and she's stuck." The handholds to the box are made from blades which are angled to allow you to easily enter the box, but to exit would cause you to severely cut your wrists and hands. Xavier hears her screaming and collects another number for his combination and then leaves her there to bleed out. And this is indeed the trap that 14-year-old me was so proud to work out how she could have escaped from, even after she had put her hands in the box and not listened to her tape. I did say she was the impulsive one. Addison stumbled into the room as I said earlier, and the fact that they didn't find it earlier makes me think it must have been locked until recently. But if it wasn't locked, then of course they could have found it earlier and either smashed the glass with the bat, or failing that, could have had Addison reach in and pull the antidote out from the bottom as to not spill it, and then have someone else push the blades upward as she took her arms out. But let's assume that it was locked and that Addison is in this alone with no one else in the house to help her. Step 1. Addison should have listened to the tape, and should have paused for even just a second to assess the situation she was in. But given that she was near death due to poison, I understand her irrational decisions. So step 2, let's just say she has got both arms stuck in the box and is unable to take them out with force. And there is no one around willing to help. We can see that the blades can quite easily move up the way, and that the gap to fit her arm in is pretty wide. It is certainly wide enough for her to fit her arm in up to at least the elbow and possibly further. To get her arm out, all she needed to do was simply put one arm in far enough so that it could reach and then lift the blades blocking the other arm. By doing this, she should be able to remove one hand and then can do pretty much the same with the other hand, but from under the box instead, removing her second arm. Although she would definitely not leave the box unscathed, she would not have suffered deep enough wounds to kill her, and if she had not spilt the content of the syringe, then she could have grabbed it with her second hand as she removed it from the box. So I don't know if that made sense when I described it, because it's a very visual one in my head, so I'm gonna literally show you. Arm in, arm in. She goes up, she reaches across, she can lift the blades. She just lift the blades, hand out. She's stuck here. She lifts the blades, hand out. If the antidote's still there, and she's not just pulled it, pick it up. Addison could have survived. When she spilled the antidote, her fate was definitely sealed and it was game over. But had she not spilled the antidote, and even had she not listened to her tape, she could still certainly have used my method to get her arms out, and so Addison could have survived. Detective Matthews threatens Kramer with a gun, and he finally seems to give up, saying,
Well, oh. Say it again. Game over.
and agreeing to take him to the house his son is in. They make a super sneaky escape out the back, and we get another car chase similar to the first movie as Carrie sends some troops to the house. Xavier really wants the codes on the back of Amanda and Daniel's neck, but Amanda finds a trap door which they use the key from the start that Jonah had kept to open. Matthews enters the house as Xavier chases Amanda and Daniel through some corridors. The rest of the police arrive at the house, but Carrie can't see them on the surveillance footage, and Daniel and Amanda find our favorite luxury bathroom from the first film. We are treated to a selection of audio clips from the first movie, half of which I selected for my last video, so I guess great minds and all that. We also see Adam is dead, and so I can confirm his death for now, but there are still more clues for me to discover before I try to save him. Amanda uses the fact that Xavier doesn't know his own number to try and save her life, but he just cuts off his own skin and she realizes that it didn't work. But Daniel could sense the ghost of Adam telling him to play dead and do another hecking spook attack in which he slits Xavier's throat, killing him. So we know my opinion on trying to save people from a fight, but let me do some quick maths here. Unless I'm mistaken, there have been 4 opportunities to find antidotes so far, with the 5th being the antidote in the safe. There were 8 people who initially woke up in the room, and now spoilers for literally 2 minutes later in the film, but Daniel and Amanda don't need to find antidotes and were never supposed to die. So that still leaves 6 other people in the games. So if there's 6 people needing to survive, then there's likely 6 antidotes hidden around the house. At least 6 antidotes, potentially more. We hear that Obi had the opportunity to find 2, Xavier had the opportunity to find 1, and Addison found a tape, although we don't know who it's meant for, so there was another one there. There's one in the safe, but the safe's game wasn't designed for anyone in particular, and so it can be assumed that there are probably at least 1 or 2 other games hidden around the house, if not 3 more games to account for the 3 other characters that didn't have tapes aimed at them. And so, although Xavier had worked out how to open up the safe, it probably wasn't the best option for him, or at least not the safest option for him, as it did involve getting the codes from everyone else's neck, and considering that there are probably games hidden around the house, he would have likely been safer off to just look for at least 1 other game and get an idea for what it could be. However, the building was trapped and there could be pitfalls somewhere in this plan that he can't account for, and neither can the audience, as we just don't know what traps and what mechanisms are hidden around the building. Considering that he had already killed Jonah, who at that point was the only other person still alive who was likely able to match him in a fight, considering that Xavier is a big guy and everyone else is definitely much smaller than him, and also clearly under the effects of the poison and weak. Fighting wasn't a terrible decision, as he can kind of justify the idea that he would be able to beat all of them in a fight, particularly when he has that spiked bat. Now, as I said, he could have potentially found another game, and that would have been a more peaceful option for everyone, but with the state that poison has put his brain and body in, he wasn't going to be thinking rationally, and at that point I'm sure pure panic had kicked in and he just wanted to survive. He didn't really care about anyone else, and we knew that from the start, but at that point, knowing he had even minutes left to live, any method that ends with him getting an antidote, he would commit to. But saying all that, considering I think that this probably actually was his best option and it didn't work out for him, then I have to say that Xavier could not have survived. Riggs realizes that they have stormed the wrong house when they discover that what Amanda is seeing isn't live. I just don't talk much. Matthews makes it to the bathrooms, but gets bamboozled by our favorite piggy icon who drugs him and knocks him out. The timer next to Carrie hits 0 and a safe opens with Daniel inside. Matthews wakes up with a tape, but this time it's Amanda's voice on the tape, and she's pissed that he framed her. We learn that she was part of the game the whole time. We get a series of clips from throughout the film, with the gist of it being that had Detective Eric Matthews stayed and chatted to Kramer like he had asked, then he would still be in the building where his son was found. But because he got violent, Kramer tricked him and Amanda drugged him and chained him up, locking him in the bathroom and taking John's place in letting us know at what point of the game and movie we are at by saying,
"Game over."
and the film ends with Eric showing that he is still a very spiteful and angry man, both through the death threats he is screaming and the bloodied body of Kramer left in the car. And there we have the second movie in the Saw franchise. 7 named characters died in Saw 2, and there were 5 confirmed antidotes that were unsuccessfully acquired. With smart planning and teamwork, I believe that all 6 of those who died in the house could have survived, and all of the antidotes could have been saved, with Michael the only character who was almost certainly doomed from the start. Without teamwork and having the characters only fend for themselves with even a little bit of thought and composure, I believe at least 2 of them should have survived, and again, with a bit of extra luck, everyone could have survived to see another day, but hey, where's the fun in that? And so there we have it. I am getting much more used to filming these and writing the scripts now. I think after editing the first one and stuff, I got a better understanding of kinda how to deliver it to camera-ish, sort of. Still getting used to it, but I'm having fun still, so it's all good. Out of all the Saw films, I think Saw 3 is the one that I know the least about, and I think I've only seen it one time, and so I am looking forward to rewatching it and learning more interesting and weird and kinda gross facts about the human body and what it can do. And today's fun fact is that I learned that the word to describe killed or sacrificed by fire is immolation, which is what happened to poor Obi in the oven. So if you liked what you saw, then please do hit the like button, and if you are new to the channel, I would love you to stick around and hit the subscribe button. If you disagree with any of my opinions, if you have your own ideas of how people could have escaped their traps, or if you just want to say hi, then put it in the comments below. And if you're looking for something a little bit more lighthearted, then look on my channel and you will see my other series where I just show you what I do on a weekly basis in a vlog. Be kind and stay safe, and thank you for watching. Could they have survived? Saw 2.